Welcome to Transformations, interviewing people changing our world. I'm your host, Diane J. Shaver, and as you've seen by now, it takes one person, one decision, one commitment, and you can change the world, and we all have that power. And today I have the great pleasure of interviewing a young woman who is changing the world on many different levels, and you're going to see what I mean in just a minute. Her name is Katie Stagliano, and she is the founder of Katie Krops, and it all began when she was 9 years old. So welcome, Katie. Welcome to Transformations.
Thank you so much for having me.
Well, all right. You're probably so sick of this, but anyway, tell us what happened at 9 years old and how it started you on your path.
So when I was 9 years old, I was in the third grade, and I brought home a tiny cabbage seedling from my school. I planted it in a sunny corner of my backyard. Every day I'd come over, I'd water, weed around it, and I even built a cabbage cage around it, which I know that sounds kind of odd, but there had been deer that had been coming in and eating people's shrubs and their plants in their backyard, and a neighbor told me about it, so I constructed a cabbage cage out of wooden posts and chicken wire. And my cabbage grew to be 40 pounds. And I was absolutely shocked. My cabbage was about the size of my 4-year-old brother at the time. And every night before I sat down to dinner, my dad would always tell me just how lucky my brother and I were to be receiving these meals, because there are some families who weren't as fortunate as us, who would go to bed hungry or rely on soup kitchens for what might be their only meal of the day. And that's when I got the idea that really changed my life forever. I decided that I wanted to donate my cabbage to a soup kitchen and help feed those families who might not otherwise have a meal. So one Wednesday morning in May of 2008, I brought my cabbage to a local soup kitchen, Tri-County Family Ministries, and I was actually blessed to be able to return and serve my cabbage to 275 guests of the soup kitchen. And that one day is really where my dream was born. I thought if one cabbage can help to feed 275 people, then imagine how many people an entire garden could feed. And Katie's Krops really just grew from there.
So what was the original vision? What did you think you could do at that point, just at the starting point?
So at the beginning, the original vision of Katie's Krops was really just for me to start gardens and then donate the produce from these gardens to soup kitchens, just like Tri-County, where I had donated my cabbage.
And so how did it grow from there? And you say gardens, so you had more than one garden in your backyard?
So I started with the one garden in my backyard, and then I approached my school when I was in the 4th grade. And I told them about my cabbage and how I was growing vegetables in my backyard and how I wanted to do more. And my school was amazing. They gave me a plot of land the size of a football field when I was in the 4th grade, which was amazing. So that became my second garden. I got my classmates involved, and then kids from across the country started reaching out as well. And they were talking about how they believed that there should be no hunger, and they believed in what I was doing, and they wanted to help out, and they asked how they could support me. And that's when I decided that I was going to give funding to these kids so that they could start gardens like the gardens that I had started in my community, and they could donate the produce to those in need in their community. And that's how we had gardens and other growers in other states across the United States.
So a couple of questions. You decided it would be 9 to 16 years old would be your target?
Yes. So our growers across the country are between the ages of 9 and 16. And I chose these ages because 9 was when I decided to donate my cabbage and grew my cabbage. And then 16, just so that these kids, 16 is around the time when you're kind of starting to be closer to going to college and things like that. And we want our growers and our gardens to be sustainable. So we didn't want to give the funding and have them be kind of like a one-time thing. We wanted these gardens to continue to grow year after year. So what we decided to do was to continue to give funding as much as these kids needed the funding for their projects. And so 16 seemed like a good age to where they could start figuring out who they wanted to pass their garden down to when they went off to college and things like that.
Where did you get the funding? You keep talking about funding, and you hear so many people say how hard it is to get funding. How did you get funding?
We have some amazing people who have really stepped behind us and supported us. We apply for a lot of grants. My community has been amazing. People from across the country have been amazing, and companies in the seed industry, the fresh produce industry, gardening industry, all sorts of people like that have also stepped up to support. So it's kind of been an outpouring of support from so many different places. I know funding is something that we've struggled with for a little bit because it definitely is hard to garner funding, but we've had so many amazing people that have stepped up and really helped make my dream come true.
And it is, and it still keeps growing. You're Gen Z, so why do you think, and maybe it's just you, but I see with other young people in that age range that there is a desire to solve problems. What is it in you guys that you came into this world with that gives you that impetus?
You know, I'm not sure what it is. I think it's amazing though, because I've definitely seen with my generation how we feel that if there's an issue and there's something that we want to change, instead of just kind of talking about how we wish we could change it, we really start to figure out the best way to take action and start making a change. And I think a lot of it has to do with us finally realizing that it doesn't matter how young or how old you are. You can make a huge impact, kind of even just starting with one small action. Like my cabbage, I never imagined that any of this would happen. But I knew that after donating my cabbage that I had a passion and that I wanted to help the people that I had met at the soup kitchen that day, because there were families just like mine who had fallen down on hard times. And I really knew that I wanted to do more to support them. And so for me, that was kind of the catalyst. And I thought, I really want to do this. And I wasn't focused on the things that could go wrong or the obstacles in my way. Instead, I was focused on the amazing things that could grow from this and that could happen. And I think that's kind of the mindset that a lot of people in Gen Z have. They've seen other people kind of following their dreams and they thought, well, why can't I do that too? And they've accomplished some amazing things.
It's really remarkable. And I keep thinking you guys are going to be running our world, our country soon. And we need you so much. So anything we can do to support you is important. But it is remarkable. And as I interview other young people, some people younger than you even, I'm just seeing they step up and they just do things. And the older generations, they talk about it, but they see the problems. And that's a huge kind of thing. And they have to go through structures. So you guys are creating your own structures. And I can't say enough how important that is and how we all want to support you in doing that. So you also have Seeds for Change and you also have a dinner program. What are those two things?
So the Seeds for Change program is actually something that we started at the beginning of the pandemic. And this began because we had found a lot of our Katie Krops growers that have gardens across the country. These gardens a lot of them were located at schools, community centers, places like that. And during the stay-at-home mandates and everything with COVID, a lot of people were struggling to gain access to their gardens. We did have some amazing teachers that stepped up to keep the gardens going for their students who were unable to come on to the school's property and things like that. But it was difficult for some people. And we knew a lot of people were now at home and just looking for activities to do, things for homeschooling to get their kids involved, and ways to help their community. So we had an influx of seeds that were actually just sitting upstairs in my house. And I thought, well, what better thing to do with them than to send them out to families across the country and get them involved in gardening. It's just a great thing for kids to learn at such a young age about where their food comes from, growing their own food. So I thought it was very important for these kids to learn that. It was a great thing that could be tied into homeschooling curriculums. And of course, it's a fabulous way to really help your community and neighbors in need, because especially now we just know how people are struggling and how important it is to be kind to one another and lend a helping hand whenever you can. So we started this at the beginning of COVID. We have people just who are interested in receiving seeds will contact us with their information, and then we will send them seeds kind of based on where they live. And we've received just some amazing pictures and videos and updates from people. And I think it's been a really great program because it's introduced kids to gardening. It's been a great family bonding activity. And it's also been a way that people were able to help themselves, their friends, their neighbors, and their community.
It's so powerful. Have you ever thought of expanding it out of the US? Because there are other countries who could use what you've got.
We definitely would love to expand out of the United States. Right now, our goal is to have 500 gardens in all 50 states, or at least to be in all 50 states. And then we want to explore outside of the United States. We ship some of our Seeds for Change seeds to Canada, so that was exciting. And we also do have a garden in Africa that was started by one of our Katie Krops growers. She was an avid volunteer with us, and she moved to Florida, and she actually started her own Katie Krops garden there. And then she met individuals who were living in Africa who were really wanted to start a garden. And so she actually flew over there and started a Katie Krops garden there. So we do have one garden that is not here, but it's definitely a dream to have gardens in other countries and places around the world, because I know that especially now there's just so many people in need all across the world.
Yeah. I have a connection for you in Gambia, somebody who wants to start a garden and needs the seeds and all that stuff. So we'll talk afterwards. This is
awesome.
Yeah, this is so exciting. I can't tell you. So you also won the General Mills Scholars Program, and you have a Disney video. How did all that stuff happen?
So honestly,
yeah,
sure. People have different companies and media outlets have reached out and just wanted to cover my story, to kind of share what these kids were doing across the country. And the important thing about that is really just getting the message out, first of all, letting people know about Katie Krops if they are in need. Maybe they're interested in starting a garden to help their community, or if they also just inspiring kids, showing them, as we were talking about earlier with everything with Gen Z, just showing people how it doesn't matter how young or how old you are, you can make a difference. And kind of, I hope by sharing my story that it'll show other kids that if they have something that they're passionate about, that there shouldn't be anything holding them back, that they should follow their heart and follow a cause that they believe in, and you never know the difference that you'll be able to make. So it's been really amazing to have so many big companies and so many media organizations cover my story and believe in me and believe in these kids across the country who are passionate about ending hunger.
But you also need to understand, and maybe you do already, that you are giving hope to these corporate people and all that this world can function, that there is something still that has heart in our world, and that can be active and it can create impact. So I cried many times reading your story, by the way, because it touched me, because I think most of us has gotten so calloused and so disgusted with so much that's going on. So you need to understand just that your being and your drive and all that stuff, it is helping us old guys too. So I want you to know that. So how does it work? So you grow your garden, and then how does it get out to people, and what are some stories about that?
So we have individuals across the country, all of these kids who apply to become Katie Krops growers. We give them the funding, they find a space, and they start their gardens. And then what they do with the produce is really up to them. They know their communities better than we do, so they find the place with the most need in their community. We've had individuals donating to senior citizens who were in need, cancer patients who were struggling, and those who were struggling with illnesses and they had to decide between paying their medical bills and putting food on the table, homeless shelters, kids at schools, and the backpack programs and things like that. So wherever their need is in the community is where they donate their produce. And I think our growers are just incredible because from such a young age, they take ownership of this project, they take responsibility, and they create the most amazing things. We've had growers who have started gardens on rooftops in New York City, on huge farmlands in their backyard, like all over, wherever they were able to find the land, then they just really took it and made it their own. We've had kids who've grown several thousand pounds in their backyards, which I think is just amazing and just shows how when you're passionate about something and you want to make a difference, really the amazing things that are possible. So we just have the most incredible family of Katie's Krops growers, and they continue to amaze me every day. We have a grower in Texas, his name is Ian, and when Hurricane Harvey hit, he used our Katie's Krops dinner models and actually took it into his own hands and did his own dinner where he gave out food to those who had been affected by the hurricane, which was just so amazing. He saw a need in his community, even beyond just the regular need for food was after the hurricane. And he said, I want to do something to help, and was able to give so many individuals who were going through such a tough time a hot, healthy, free meal, which was just incredible.
Oh, it's a great story. And one of the things, I mean, you're doing many things on many levels, but I always try to look at the expanse of this. And one of the things that I see is that you guys are being woven into the community. In order to do what you do, you need to be integrated into the community. And I think some of the examples before us and in the current generations is that people have gotten very distant from one another. They are not connected. And also you give the lie that COVID is separating us, because you guys are not being separated by a disease. So how are you guys changing that image of how we can interact in a community? Why are you crossing the borders? And do you see older generations kind of being separated out and not understanding what you guys understand?
So I think with Katie's Krops, I was actually talking to my friend Kyle this morning. We were up at the garden, and he's been helping me since he was in the 5th grade. We were both in the 5th grade. And he was like, I can't believe, like, we started working together in the 5th grade. I started helping you then, and it's been 10 years since then, at least, and now here we are in another garden working. And he was like, I just can't believe all that we've gone through and all that has happened over those years. And I think that because me and the community kind of grew up together, I grew up in Somerville and was starting Katie's Krops from such a young age and just continued on, that's kind of how we became so integrated into the community. I just met so many people over the years who have been amazing and supportive and offered to help. And it's just kind of helped let people know about us and continue to help us get involved with different people, different organizations, and things like that. I think a huge thing that we've done that has connected us with our community is our Katie's Krops dinners. And these actually began because the only soup kitchen in my area shut their doors due to lack of funding. And I had been donating there my produce, and I was really concerned about what was going to happen to the individuals who had been relying on the soup kitchen for meals. And so I knew I had all these gardens and they were full of fresh produce, and I had friends who were willing to help. And so we actually started the Katie's Krops dinners. Our 10-year anniversary is this October, which is very exciting. And we started these dinners. We started taking all of the produce from the gardens, and then whatever we couldn't grow, we purchased, and we would create meals that were hot, healthy, and free to anyone in need in the community. And so that was a way that we were really able to connect with so many individuals we've had dinner guests that have been coming to our dinners for 7, 8 years now. And so we've really gotten to know them and know their stories and be there for their highs and their lows. These people have seen me graduate high school, they've seen me graduate college. It's just, they've really grown up with me and grown with me. And this has really connected us to the community because we've been able to reach out to so many different people, people who are struggling, people who want to help their friends and their neighbors, businesses and organizations that want to help us. Especially during COVID, we usually would do our meals once a month, and we'd serve anywhere from 150 to 250 individuals. And it would be in a big dining room. It was like a social event. It was so fun because it brought together people that may normally not have been together, and they created lasting friendships with one another. And it was a great experience. But once COVID hit, we couldn't have that many people gathered together. So instead, we started doing to-go meal distributions. And we started in March. And we originally were doing about 200 meals a week, and now we do 400 meals a week. And we just passed 10,000 meals that we've distributed since March. And that's definitely connected us to the community as well, because there's a lot of people now that are coming to our meal distribution that may not have needed it before, but due to everything happening in the world, they might have lost their job, they're struggling just with everything going on with COVID and the pandemic and just how the world has changed so much in several months. We're seeing a lot of new faces, but I've grown very close with all of these people too. They're bringing their friends, they're making sure that everybody is getting meals. We have a lot of people that will come through and they'll say, these meals aren't for me, but I know my neighbors are elderly and they're shut in right now and they need meals, or my neighbors don't have transportation, but they are struggling. And so we have people that will come and pick up for their neighbors, their friends, their family, and just making sure that everybody gets a meal and is helped during this time. So the dinners have been super important for us to really be connected with our community.
And it's also a symbol of hope to people. I mean, it's bigger than the food. I mean, the food is critical, or else we can't survive. That's true. But the hope and the kindness and all that stuff, it gives people a sense that the world is not going to hell and back. And that's a very powerful thing that you are giving, to give hope, to give love to people, because that's what love is. It's not the romantic, syrupy kind of thing, but it's the real deal. So how are you going to celebrate your 10th year? Something big should happen.
So it's definitely under different circumstances than we had expected. We'd originally wanted to have kind of like a huge party for all of the dinner guests and just make it really exciting and really fun. But unfortunately, due to COVID, and it's still around, when we first started our to-go meal distributions in March, I was like, there's no way by the 10-year anniversary, we'll still be doing all this. But here we are. So we have made some adjustments to it, but we are working now to, despite the fact that everyone will still be in their cars going through the line, we're trying to make it really exciting. We're trying to get some radio stations out, kind of play some music, make it kind of like a parking lot party, because everyone still needs to stay in their cars to be safe, but we're going to try and make a delicious meal, have lots of delicious drinks and desserts, kind of decorate everything, and have a few surprises up our sleeve to hopefully make it as special as we possibly can for our guests. Because especially right now, everyone needs just like a little pick-me-up every once in a while, something to look forward to, something exciting going on. So we are hoping to make this the most exciting thing that we can for our guests.
And hearing everything that you told me, I know you will. I know it will be spectacular. So what keeps you going when things get tough? Because, I mean, doing what you're doing is wonderful and it's energizing, but I know from experience, it takes a lot. So what keeps you going?
The people that I help are really what keep me going. They have become like a second family to me. As I said earlier, they've watched me graduate high school. They've watched me graduate college. I recently celebrated my 22nd birthday with them, and it was so much fun because everybody came through the line. I was extra and I wore a birthday sash to the dinner that day, but everyone was wishing me happy birthday. People had made cards for me, made cakes for me. It was just the absolute sweetest thing. And so really just these individuals that I've grown so close with over the past 12 years doing Katie's Krops, they're really the reason why I continue to do what I do every day and why I can't imagine doing anything else.
So your vision has changed, obviously, as this has grown. What's the new vision for Katie's Krops?
So the new vision for Katie's Krops is to expand all across the United States. And then eventually after that to expand internationally. We really want to get kids involved and inspire and help kids to help end hunger. Ultimately, when I look at Katie's Krops, the goal for me is to be a part of the solution to ending hunger. And I know that's kind of a big picture type of thing, but I know that working together, we can help be a part of the solution and help end hunger. So that's what we're working towards with our dinners and with our growers across the country. And over the past 12 years, we have grown and donated over 250,000 pounds of fresh produce. So I know that it's not a lot, but it's definitely a big dent, and I'm very proud of us.
You should be. I mean, that it's phenomenal. And especially again, in the way the world is right now, it really stands out. One of the things I think that you need to see, you probably do because you're very, very smart, is that you maybe have donated a certain amount, but what you've done, you've touched other people who are going to, it's a ripple effect. And that's what's important. And also you're a beacon of hope, and you need to accept that. Because you're demonstrating to people who are not in your generation how things get done. And you guys are going to be running the world very soon and will be in political office, and all of that will change as well. So your impact is much more than Katie's Krops, although I'm not putting that down because it's phenomenal. But you need to see that. And we need people who are there in the forefront doing what they're doing, but also symbols that ignite other people to do things. So even in our interview here, when other people hear you and know what you've done, it will spark something in them to step up. And so the impact is much more than X number of pounds of food. So you obviously know that, but I wanted to say it to you as well. Yeah. So, go ahead.
I was just going to say that we've definitely seen kind of the ripple effect and how everything goes, not only just with the food. We've definitely seen people who are very in need that will receive food from us and then share it with their friends, but also just people, I mean, who have connected with family members that they'd lost touch with because of Katie's Krops and because of them getting back up on their feet and gardening and things like that. So it's just growing food and cooking food and all of that. I've just really seen how it's so much more than it just appears to be. It's more than just the food being donated and the people receiving the meals, because that is so very important, but it's also the relationships that are created and just the love that's spread around.
Yeah. And that's the critical piece. And that's been the missing piece. And you're supplying that. And you will inspire so many people. And that's what's enormous. And it'll be interesting to see the offshoots as you go along. And some of them may not be about food. They may be about different things, but they will all weave back to you, which is going to be a very interesting process to watch. It'll be really cool. So how can our audience, our listening audience, how can they help? What does Katie Krops need? What do people need? What do you see people being able to do? And let's say they can't start a garden.
So there is a couple of different things that people can do to help. If they want to donate and support us, we do have wish lists on our website and things like that. And a lot of the items on our wish list are actually going towards our meal distributions right now, to help us continue to serve those 400 meals a week, and also helping us continue with our gardens. and then just any funding goes towards both. So if there's the wish list that if people want to donate from there or make a direct donation, all of our information is on our website. But also, I think it's so important right now to just be kind to one another, to help out a neighbor in need. If you see a need in your community, now more than ever, it's so important to do what you can to help. You never know. You could be changing someone's life with just one small action. So I think really it's just important to be kind to one another.
Yep, very powerful words. That sounds simple, very powerful. Is there anything we haven't covered? Anything you would like to get out there to people?
We've covered pretty much everything. The only thing I do want to say is that in mid-October, we will be opening up our application to become a Katie Krops grower. So if anybody is interested in starting a garden, we've kind of changed the way that everything is going this year. So we're making it more accessible for people to start gardens at home and providing mostly everything that you will need. So if anyone is interested or knows any kids between the ages of 9 and 16 who are interested, all of the information is on our website, and you'll be making a huge impact in your community, especially now with so many people who are struggling.
Well, I'm so glad that you're going to carry it forward. And even with COVID, I mean, with masks and distancing, it doesn't change our need for one another and our interaction with one another. So that's really powerful. Katie, this has been amazing. And again, you are an inspiration. I mean, people will be talking about you and it will be waves going out. And this is so wonderful. I so appreciate you and what you're doing. And I know that there's so much more in store for you. If you can hang around a minute afterwards, I'll connect you with a person in Africa.
Yes, definitely.
Okay, that sounds good. So thank you so much, Katie Stagliano from Katie's Krops. And you can see her website, www.katieskrop.org. And in the meantime, remember, you all, this is Transformations Podcast, interviewing people, changing our world. I'm your host, Diane J. Shaver. And remember, one person, one decision, one commitment, and you can change the world. And you've just seen how it works today. So I look forward to seeing you next time. In the meantime, you can see all of our wonderful world changers at YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Buzzsprout, Spotify, and so forth. So I'll see you next time. And thank you for being with us. Stay safe, stay well.